Carl at the Pizzeria is canon?
Hey, I know what we're gonna analyze. The episodes in season 5. Hope it brings you laughter. This is Afterferb.
You know, Ferb, I don't think the harmonica music's helping.
Welcome to Afterferb. That's my impression of Ferb playing the harmonica in the car.
That was my impression of Phineas, that it's usually better, but me and Andrew are up pretty early this morning to record this episode.
I was just doing a Perry impression.
Oh, you know?
Wow, we really just recreated that entire opening scene of Chip to the Vet.
Yeah, no, we did. No notes, 10 out of 10. Also, really quickly, for you diehard podcast listeners who are listening all the way back in the very first episode of Afterferb, I totally predicted the plot of this episode.
Okay.
And I'm
based on the title of the episode.
Yes, based on the title, and I'm very thrilled with that.
You kind of did.
I guess the log line.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, because I thought your pitch, which Zach's prediction was that Chip to the Vet would be about the boys wanting to microchip Perry to find out where he goes every day, and Perry having to avoid that. So it was kind of close in the fact that Perry was at risk of getting chipped, but not via Phineas and Ferb. But they were the ones at the end who actually decided, nah, we're good.
Picky, picky, picky.
Do we think the Flynn Fletcher family had a desire to chip Perry, or were they simply taking advantage of the fact that it was free chipping day?
See, but they didn't end up
cheapskates.
chipping him at all, so I think it was just a complete coincidence that they were going to the vet on free chipping day.
Yeah, but, you know, the conflict was still there.
So let's go back to this first scene then, because the episode opens on a shot of an extremely sad Perry the Platypus. And the question has been brought up, is Perry the Platypus, secret agent P, actually really scared of going to the vet? Does he actually really hate it and is he nervous about it? Or is it just kind of a pet act?
Ooh, that would be good. Isn't there an episode of Phineas and Ferb that talks about what Perry the Platypus's fears are, and it's like none?
Ooh.
But what if secretly it is going to the vet? Because I feel like that's a very rational fear for a pet to have. And by rational, I mean a lot of pets have it.
Well, I also think a lot of humans have it, too. Like, I think just...
I'm not scared of going to the vet.
Well,
yeah, me either.
You know what I mean. I wonder if pets have the equivalent of white coat syndrome, you know? Where they also get scared. Because when I walk into a hospital, like, you know, or a doctor's office, I don't like being there, and I wonder if pets have that, you know, psychological thing as well. That being said, I feel like we rarely see Perry emote when he's around the boys. He usually kind of has that, like, you know, dead look in his eyes with the basic platypus face.
It's just a PowerPoint. It doesn't do much.
We were just talking about PowerPoints. But no, like, so I'm wondering if he is legitimately scared or if that is, you know, him doing, not a bit, but like part of the act of him being undercover. But I feel like we don't normally see him emote when he's being undercover.
All right, we have to officially take this moment to give the enormous Jeremy Watch official update. Because
Hashtag Jeremy Watch.
Hashtag Jeremy Watch is officially fully conclusively done with this episode. There's quite a lead up into it, because in the first scene, Candace is like, Jeremy, 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 Jeremy. And I'm sitting there thinking, all right, here it comes. Here comes the moment of truth. Let's find out what Jeremy sounds like.
Let's all watch.
Yeah, let's all watch Jeremy. And there's David Arrigo Jr.,
who is not officially credited as playing Jeremy. We've heard through sources.
Yeah, he's credited as additional voices.
Which is that's what Jeremy is now, I guess.
I guess Jeremy is this is, well, spoilers for the rest of the first half of season 5. We don't hear Jeremy again the rest of the first half of season 5. This is his one appearance.
That's not true.
Really?
He's in Meet Me in St. Louis.
Oh, yes. Oh, I completely forgot that. I don't know why I forgot that. Anyway, I guess I've already just...
I like to forget Meet Me in St. Louis.
Well, we'll get to that when we get to that.
Save it.
We'll save that for when we save that. One thing I noticed, because Andrew, you were talking about one of the reasons you were hoping that Jeremy would be in this season is so you could see that their relationship has kind of evolved, Candace and Jeremy. Because Candace is no longer just nervous about like, oh no, what's Jeremy gonna think, whatever. And I think that really does come through even in these like short scenes where Candace is like, one slushy fry is handsome. Like she's much more confident than she would have been like the year before.
Yeah, I mean they're still not like shoving it in your face that they have a label on their relationship, like boyfriend and girlfriend. But I mean, to be fair, even in the original run, post Summer Belongs to You, they didn't do that either. I think they're keeping it subtle in that, like, yeah, they're a thing. They're teenagers. It's not that serious, but, you know, they're confident in front of each other now, which is nice to see after a lot of the original run of Phineas and Ferb, where they're just like, specifically Candace is just like beating herself in the head, not knowing what to say to this guy.
Yeah.
And she definitely seems more confident in her relationship with Jeremy and loves him despite the fact that his voice is different.
Okay, here's what I'll say about the new Jeremy voice. I think it is a perfectly serviceable performance. I think David's doing a great job. It doesn't sound like M.W.C.A. simply due to the fact that his vocal cords are different. So it did seem a little bit jarring to me at first. But I think in a vacuum where M.W.C.A. never voiced this character, I would think that this voice works for the kind of character that Jeremy is.
Oh yeah, I think it works perfectly fine. It's just kind of like a change. But
I think it works for the more casual viewer. Like, I think because Jeremy was not in every episode like the main five or even the Backyard Gang. And so I feel like people who might not be diehard fans of Phineas and Ferb, they might not even notice.
We were watching with our friend Amber, and she hadn't seen this episode or any episode with Jeremy in it. And I think we were like expecting her to have a reaction to Jeremy's voice being different, and I think she just didn't notice.
Yeah, I guess she wasn't hardcore on the Jeremy watch train. Otherwise,
shout out Amber.
Maybe it's our fault. Maybe it should have been hashtag Jeremy here, HEAR here. Instead of watch, Jeremy listen.
Everybody only looks at Jeremy.
And then we could have changed it to Jeremy here, like HERE, like he's finally here. This was a missed opportunity.
Everyone comment hashtag Jeremy here, HERE.
The issue with being a charming, handsome teenager is everybody only wants to watch you. They never want to hear what you have to say.
I'm always saying that.
Always. One funny implication of David Ergo Jr. inheriting this role as Jeremy is, you know, he's going around like at cons and things like that and being introduced in the press as like the voice of Ferb, which is completely accurate and totally is a big deal. But I feel like if he gets Jeremy in more episodes, it's possible he'll be doing more dialogue as Jeremy because like he actually speaks in, you know, sentences regularly.
Is it possible he already has like more total word count as Jeremy than as Ferb when you count up all the episodes?
I don't know. I mean, certainly in the first half of season 5, I would say no. But if we get like a Jeremy episode, I think that might be all it would take to surpass the number of Ferb lines.
I'm going to count. I don't know, because you might not remember this, but Ferb doesn't talk a lot. So I'm going to want to count this up. I'm going to want to check.
Yeah, but he's had a couple moments.
Alex, you do that before our next recording and get back to us.
I will.
Because we would love to know.
Actually, I probably won't.
If anybody in the comments wants to do it, we'll give you a shout out.
Count the number of Ferb lines and the number of Jeremy lines and keep them in a tally in our comments.
Not lines, but words.
Oh, right, because, yeah, I guess words.
Well, and you got to include Candace Against the Universe and the Phineas and Ferb effect to count the total of David Ergo Jr.'s Ferb total.
Well, now we're bending the rules here a bit. Anyway, let's get back to the episode.
Okay, let's move on.
So what do we have going on here? So we have the vet. We have a bunch of impatient waiting room people who are all, I would say, extremely rudely reprimanding. Busy. And Phineas wants to help them. I'd be like, let them suffer, whatever.
I'll just quickly say, working at a theme park and seeing how people get when they wait in line, accurate.
Yeah, can confirm.
Yeah.
People don't like waiting for things.
That's true. I don't know. I'm just like, be patient, whatever.
Yeah, but you're from Canada where everybody's like nice.
That has nothing to do.
That's true.
This is okay. Little bit of a tangent here. This is a thing with me being from Canada. Every time I go to the United States, no matter what character trait I have, people are like, "Oh, is that what people in Canada are like?" It's like, no, I just what I'm like.
Sorry,
it's okay.
People in Canada are always saying Jeremy here. So yeah. I just want to point out one thing that I thought was kind of cool about this episode is when Phineas and Ferb. It's when it's decided that their idea today is to make the pet grooming station. Ferb already made it. He was the one that decided today. And I think that that's pretty cool. Because like Phineas is going for that light bulb moment and then he just has it ready.
Also, I think this is the first time this season we get a genuine like 90-second quirky worky song.
Yeah.
Like, we got to the boom chicka boom chicka boom. Like we got to that section.
You know it's a good quirky worky when it gets to the boom chicka verse.
Yeah. It was a great one. My favorite gag in the Quirky Worky was probably Isabella accidentally shaving off a little bit of her hair and then adjusting her bow to cover it up.
So what I thought would have been funny would be she shaves off a little bit of her hair and then moves the bow forward, but revealing that the bow has been covering a previous bald spot.
Well, at that point, then you just have to constantly have Isabella having a bald spot, or just she gets a bigger bow.
Maybe she shaved off the entire upper half of her head, and that's why it's like a semicircle.
We're onto something here.
You guys think Phineas and Ferb had normal-shaped heads before one of their inventions, and they got all screwed up?
Sound off below. Anyway, I mean, Baljeet kind of looks like he's serving once he gets his hairdo done, which is nice.
Yeah. They I feel like in this episode, they were like, we're going to give all of the Backyard Gang little moments, and then when they get to the at the pet wash song, they just have those like shots that linger on the characters just dancing like slightly longer than one would expect. I think the storyboard artists and the animators were just kind of vibing with this episode.
I think this episode, just being in a different location, allowed for a lot of really good storyboard moments. Like, I know we're kind of jumping the gun here, but something I noticed was the action sequence of the Doof Perry fight made terrific use of the space of being in a vet. Like, we had the gag with the x-rays of the slushy dog being committed, which was a great running gag in the episode in and of itself. The usage of the leashes, the usage of like the stethoscope, like going through the halls. I really liked, I like it when episodes take place not in the backyard, because the writers have a lot of fun using the different locations. And I think this action sequence between Doof and Perry was really evident.
I think the number one strength of this episode probably was, the Doofenshmirtz Perry stuff, more so than what you'd classically call the main plot. Especially one of my favorite moments of the season, or favorite jokes, was the first, I'm just gonna eczema this room, and then the second room that has nothing to do with eczema, he's like, I'm gonna eczema this room too. The second animal there is the beaver, Felix the beaver. I don't remember what the first one was. I think it was it like a chihuahua or something like that? Hazel's eczema.
Yeah, and then it was a beaver.
Yeah, then it was a beaver. You have it's kind of like, because you think of a platypus as being like a very weird, unconventional pet. And then I think this episode really fleshed out like, everyone in Danville has remarkably unconventional pets. It's just kind of like the thing.
I like to think that was a reference to the hit movie Hundreds of Beavers that Dan Povenmire has talked about on his TikTok.
Zach loves this movie.
I love that movie.
It's a good movie.
I never heard of this movie.
One thing I'll say about the beaver is the scene where there's like the cloth over it, and Hines is like, "Oh, Perry, I had no idea you were so sick." He gets like legitimately very upset at the thought that Perry would not be well, which I think is very wholesome to see.
Yeah.
It's also funny because there's moments in season 1 and probably a couple other seasons throughout the original run where Doof's traps include like live sharks or like conveyor belts into moving lasers, and I'm like, do you think it ever would have gotten to the point that a Doof that's bonded less with Perry would have been fine with him dying, and then he just finally got to the point of caring about him? Or do you think there's never a world in which he would have been trying to kill Perry?
I think part of it is like they developed, like the character kind of naturally developed over time.
Yeah.
That kind of reminds you of, I think of Across the Second Dimension, where he didn't kill Perry, but he turned him into a cyborg, basically removing his free will. So I guess all it would have taken is for Doofenshmirtz to lose his choo-choo as a child, and then Perry might not have, lived this long.
Maybe Doofenshmirtz continues to be evil just because he has an unhealthy codependency on his relationship with Perry, and he knows that that's the only way that Perry will come around. You're
starting to sound a little bit like Dr. Shamai.
Wait. I think you're onto something, actually. I think he turned evil specifically because he missed Perry the platypus.
Well, not turned evil, but relapsed.
Yeah, relapsed. Yeah, he turned
like,
evil.
dang,
yeah.
like, because you know that thing when you get into your 20s and like people used to hang out with all the time, you'd now see like every 6 months just because you're so busy. I think he just missed.
It makes you evil.
Yeah. Oh crap! I'm gonna be evil soon.
Well, no, we kind of the show kind of all but confirms that Perry anchors Doof at his emotional core. Because you guys remember the episode "This Is Your Backstory."
Oh yeah,
where he has that. He's like trying to embrace his trauma to the point that it pushes him over the edge of being evil, and then the thing that brings him back in is Perry the platypus.
Yep.
Speaking of Perry the Platypus and Doofenshmirtz, which I guess we do a lot on this podcast, but I think I think these two episodes back to back specifically brought back a lot of running gags and themes in the show, including the hat gag.
A platypus?
But it wasn't just a platypus, Perry the Platypus. It was a really good subversion of that with him not recognizing Perry in the pet room. I thought that was a really good return to that gag this season without it being too on the nose.
Yeah, I gotta say, one of my biggest fears with this season was that all of the gags on Phineas and Ferb that have kind of become like TikTok memes, whether a platypus, Perry the Platypus, or even just like, there's a platypus controlling me. I thought that they would like reference those constantly. And they do reference them throughout the season, and even like the if I had a nickel gag, but they seem to show some level of restraint with them, and they wait until the context gives it some relevance, and they don't overdo it. So I appreciate that.
By the way, just like throwing this out there, if you're a friend of mine and you send me a TikTok and I open up the TikTok and the thumbnail shows something teal and brown, I already know what the joke's going to be. Thank you for sending it to me.
We're not going to
I'm glad that you think of me when you see that, but I know where it's going.
Yeah.
Yeah, my all-time favorite Platypus Perry the Platypus bit is the plumber one, where he actually
That's the best one.
To say Perry the Platypus plumber, where he takes off the plumber belt.
He takes off the belt. That's the best one.
No, it's a great gag. It just, I think there was a little bit too much of it on the internet.
This episode had a bunch of subversions of gags, like the same gags, but them being different. I mean, even the "Where's Perry" line, Phineas was like, "We know for sure where Perry is," which I thought was a fun twist on it. And they even bring back the pharmacist gag with Doof in the lab coat, but without being very explicit with it.
Yeah, that was a funny moment when Perry just kind of like opens the cage himself and leaves.
Yeah.
Walks out.
Okay, I thought it was very funny in general that at every moment while Perry was at the vet, if he was trying to like avoid getting shot or just avoid a cage or whatever, like he had to put on his hat to do that action. And I think it's one thing that we don't notice a lot. Like, yeah, it's ridiculous that Doof can't recognize Perry when he's not wearing the fedora. It's also ridiculous that Perry either can't or won't do anything action-oriented without wearing the fedora. Because he even puts it on, like, before he enters his lair.
Maybe it's like a union thing. Like, maybe he, like, can't do any, like, action sequences unless he has the hat on because he only gets paid when the hat's on.
Yeah, maybe the hat tracks, like, when he's clocked in.
Do you have this weird thing? Okay, tangential. But Andrew, at Universal, do you have this weird thing where if you clock out...
I wear a hat.
Well, yeah. But, like, if you clock out and you're walking to your car and a guest asks you a question and you answer it, you then have to go back to your manager and be like, hey, I helped a guest when I was off the clock. You need to pay me. Or is Disney just weird like that?
Universal didn't mention it. I'm sure if I got stopped for helping a guest, I could probably... talk to somebody and get
But
paid.
Disney is weird. It's like you cannot help guests once you've clocked out, which is strange. And so I wonder if it's a similar thing. Like Perry's like, dang, I can't do any action sequences unless I have the hat. The hat is how he clocks his time.
Well, and we see a little bit later, not to jump forward too many episodes, but in the Haberdasher, when he loses his hat, like he kind of puts everything else on hold to get it back. So yeah,
the hat serves an important agent purpose that we'll get to in Haberdasher.
While also on the topic of, I guess, just Perry and Auka, I find it interesting. So Major Monogram sends Perry a video call expressing like his concern over Perry getting chipped because he says that Doof will then be able to like track his location or he'll get his cover blown or whatever. But like it's also pointed out that Monogram already knew exactly where Perry was. He tracks him through his wrist communicator. So I find the implication that Heinz, or I guess anyone from Love Muffin, would be able to hack into a chip from the vet, but not just like a smartwatch, is interesting to me. I mean, maybe Alka has their own proprietary technology.
Yeah, that was the weird one. The main one that was emphasized that I think would have made more sense to focus on more was like, oh, your cover will be blown to your family. I feel like the whole Doof can then find out where you are, because didn't he already find out where Perry lives or something like that in the original run? I don't remember the exact.
Oh, I think it's in the episode where they become small with Irving. He's like tracking.
Oh, hide and seek.
Yeah, he's like looking at the interior of the Flynn Fletcher household.
By the way, speaking of Major Monogram, is this the first time in the entire series we see his feet?
No, I know what Major Monogram's feet look like.
That's your journey, man.
I don't remember when, but I feel like the answer is no.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Wait,
it definitely is the first
really?
time we've seen his foot touch his own hair. We have not seen that
That
before.
is probably true.
Okay.
Yeah, because we see him at like the beach and stuff.
Yeah.
But usually isn't it just like shown from like the legs up, like a medium shot?
I guess when you think about it, seeing Major Monogram's feet is kind of like seeing a Muppet's foot. Like, you're
Yeah.
not supposed to see them from the waist down.
Yeah, honestly, that was kind of like M.W.C.A. cast members for a while because we mainly saw each other on Zoom, and then when we'd meet each other in person and be like, wow, legs.
Look at your feet. Oh, yeah.
No, I wouldn't be looking at their feet, Andrew. Jesus. Anyway.
I have one thing to say. It seemed weird to me that the way you chip a pet is by basically shooting them with like a gun, like a dangerous looking actual that could hurt you gun. So I
No
looked
wonder
up-
Perry's scared of the vet.
Yeah, seriously. He knew it was free chipping day, so I'd be scared too.
I thought it was an injection.
Well, I looked it up, and it would appear that it's more like a needle, like the way you would get a vaccine, which makes way more sense. And I think the only reason that they went with this gun thing is because it's more fighty looking than maybe a needle. But yeah, just for any pets out there who are afraid of getting microchipped, it's not as bad as it looks.
I thought that the intended use of the gun is not to be used at a distance, like they do put it right up against the animal. I thought that they were just firing it for the action sequences.
Yeah, but it is true. But it is weird that even when fired from a distance, they clearly have enough like velocity that they could actually do damage, you know?
I wonder if this is not the first time that the vet has had to deal with this. Like, somebody chasing down a pet like this has happened before. All right, we have to talk about this goat gag, because we have a friend who said that this gag made this episode their least favorite in the season. What did you guys think about the screaming goat gag?
Is this a meme that I didn't know about?
Yes.
Yeah.
This is a Taylor Swift meme. There was...
Well, it didn't start as a Taylor Swift meme.
Well, there was yeah, but that's how I heard of it.
Okay.
So there was a video of a goat on YouTube going like ah! in like 2014 or whatever.
Yeah, this meme is at least 10 years old,
And
probably
then
more.
people were incorporating that goat into the Taylor Swift song "I Knew You Were Trouble When You Walked In." And
Where it's, now you're lying on the cold hard ground.
Right.
And my girlfriend Julia, as a Swiftie, hates that meme so much because she feels like it ruined the Sacred Swift song. But I actually, my thought was when the goat first appeared, I wasn't a fan of the gag. The goldfish made me appreciate it more. The thighs, I was like, okay, this is a good gag. And then I think Ferb being feral at the end was a fun tag on it. I think if it was just the goat, I would have been kind of iffy on it. But the fact that it kept heightening, I have some appreciation for the joke.
I think this joke would have been really funny in like 2014. I agree that the Heinz, like his thighs screaming, I think that kind of made it pay off. The actual shots where they cut to like the goat or the fish, it reminded me, I don't know if you guys ever watched, it was also on Disney Channel, Fish Hooks.
Yes, I actually worked the other day with a writer from Fish Hooks.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, he was on set with me, and he wrote for SpongeBob. And those gags also felt kind of SpongeBob-esque in a way, just live action cutaways.
Yeah, it felt kind of at odds with the tone that Phineas and Ferb typically strikes. I didn't like hate it. It didn't take me out of the episode, but I could see why the gag would be jarring to some people.
Yeah, well, I think Say specifically. Yeah, that's the friend who hates this episode and hates the goat sound.
Wow, way to...
I was trying to preserve the confidentiality.
Good job, Alex.
I don't Say can stand by their opinions even though they're not here. But I think the reason that they cited was basically not that they didn't like the gag per se, but they just hate that sound specifically.
So if we replaced it with like a sound of Sam Saper being like ah, like that might make it better.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel like you've done that on the vault already.
I know what I'm gonna do today.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really think about it. Honestly, I didn't even realize till you said it just now that Ferb going feral at the end was that sound being reused. That did not click to me.
Another thing that we have to mention, Buford flirting with Jeremy.
Yep.
I thought that was so funny. I mean, it's no secret that at least I and a lot of the fandom has a headcanon that like Buford's gay. He's gonna end up with Baljeet. Even if you don't share that headcanon, I just think that it was so clever the way it was written. I love the gag of everything in the slushy dog being like a sign indicating a rule, indicating that
no spit takes was great.
Yeah. And so when Candace flirts with Jeremy and he like tells her about it, and then Buford flirts with Jeremy and he's like, "You've already been warned, Buford." I love that this seemingly implies that Buford just is like a little into Jeremy. And they sort of reference it again in a later episode too. So I love that. I thought that was so funny.
Yeah, I gotta say though, I mean, he is only like 11 years old, but his flirting could use a little bit of work. I don't know, just your shirt compliments your eyes, suits your eyes, or whatever. It's like, I don't know, it's pretty basic. I feel like Buford can do better than that.
Also, like, does that shirt complement his eyes? They're not the same color.
I would argue his regular green shirt.
Yeah, better than this brown thing. That doesn't go with his blue eyes.
Well, Buford's fashion sense is a black shirt with a skull on it, so...
Okay, that's fair. So also his fashion needs work. But then again, 11, so...
So the manager in this slushy dog that yells at Jeremy, I'm pretty sure this is the same manager from, I think it's Unfair Science Fair,
yes,
where Candace gets hired at the slushy dog and she has that feud with Brenda Song's character. Mm-hmm. I tried to look up if it was the same voice actor, and I don't think he is credited in either. It might be under additional voices, but I have no idea who voices this manager. But is it the
same character model?
You know what? Well, I'm going to research this a little bit more after the break. Hi, this is future Andrew. I just looked it up. Okay, according to the Phineas and Ferb wiki, the slushy dog manager from season 1 was voiced by Kevin Michael Richardson, who does not appear in the credits anywhere for Chip to the Vet, not even under additional voices. So, presumably, the slushy dog manager has been recast, making every slushy dog employee recast for season 5.
If y'all know that it's the same character model, comment.
But if so, that would make for the second extremely niche character from season 1 to return in the revival after
Dink Winkerson.
Yeah.
Oh, something about this episode, I thought it was an incredible subversion of Doof actually going through Phineas and Ferb's invention.
Yes.
That rarely happens in the series. And
I love that.
I love that.
Because we're so used to Doof's Senator making Phineas and Ferb's invention disappear. In this one, Phineas and Ferb's invention is what thwarts Dr. Doofenshmirtz. Like, Perry kicks him into it. Oh, God, has that even ever happened before? Because I thought that was brilliant.
I feel like it must have. But yeah, I cannot think of an example.
The A and B plot were tied together even more than usual, so I like that a lot.
This is like the one instance where Perry actually was kind of directly involved in both.
Yeah.
And Perry kind of dragged...
I think Dr. Shemai was onto something.
Yes, I think he was onto something. Yeah, really kind of... Yeah, I mean, it's Perry that dragged everyone else into the vet.
This episode also spoke to me because, quick plug, I have written a musical about pets called To All Our Dead Pets. Don't let the title steer you away. It's actually kind of funny. Hoping to do another production of it sometime soon after making some revisions, and hope to license the show soon. So please follow To All Our Dead Pets on Instagram and a couple other social medias. We have a link tree. Just check out my Insta. You'll find it.
All right, here's my last question. If you had a fish on the wall and it could sing one song, but not a Phineas and Ferb song, what song would that fish sing?
Well, there goes Rubber Bands, Rubber Balls. Okay, let me think.
Another credit song from M.W.C.A.
Hey.
Skipper Dan by Weird Al Yankovic.
Hey.
Nice. You know what? I'm also going to go with Skipper Dan by Weird Al Yankovic.
My man!
I'm a tour guide on the Jungle Cruise ride.
That's Trip to the Vet. We'll be back very, 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 very soon for More Than an Intern. Hey, time to talk about a very special, very important, very monumental, life-changing episode. And we have...
Carl at the Pizzeria is canon?
Yeah, Carl at the Pizzeria is canon. That's the name of the episode. And to talk about Carl at the Pizzeria is canon, we have a very special guest here with us. Coming to us all the way from the same room Andrew and Zach are in. It's the foremost expert on Carl, Julia. Welcome to the pod.
Hello. How's it going?
Welcome back, Carl.
Going great. Going awesome. So yeah, we are inviting you onto not only the Carl episode, but the Carl at the Pizzeria's canon episode. So I don't know if you would like to start by, I guess you could start by introducing yourself as you relate to like Phineas and Ferb fandom. And then maybe from there, I know you have a very Carl Pizza specific story.
Yeah, so I played Carl in Musical Without a Cool Acronym. I don't know if you guys have heard of it. So one day, while we were filming M.W.C.A. stuff, this was like during our like tech week when we were filming everything, it was like my uncle's birthday, and my dad came downstairs while I was filming and was like, hey, we have to go. We're going to go to like a pizzeria for your uncle's birthday. And I went, oh, great. Let me just like get my makeup off and fix my hair and get changed. And he was like, there's no time. We're leaving now. So then I had to just go to a pizzeria dressed as Carl from Phineas and Ferb. And then I sent a picture of that in our Discord for M.W.C.A. And then it became Carl at the Pizzeria.
Yeah, and Alex's initial response to that was to write a song as though it's like the theme song of a Phineas and Ferb spinoff.
And we had no idea Alex did music at that point, which was very surprising for us.
You know what? It's not copyright, so let's insert a sample of it right now.
Carl at the pizzeria, pepperoni, mamma mia, that's a spicy meatball. Did I mention that the pizzeria's at the mall?
Isn't that great? Wasn't
That's
that awesome?
crazy.
I love
so
that
good.
song. And then we had released, I believe, that song somewhere on our social media. And then someone commented, someone should write a spec script of this. And I said, okay, bet, because I had nothing to do for the next couple weeks. So I wrote a full pilot of a Carl at the Pizzeria spinoff, and we did a read-through of it on the M.W.C.A. Vault channel.
It was the whole thing. We got Say to like draw a logo for the series. We
got pizza.
Alex and I wrote a song for the episode. Yeah, and the read-through was the four of us, Amber, and Ben. And we did that a little over a year ago.
So while completely unofficial and made up, Carl at the Pizzeria, to me, has always felt like an integral part of Phineas and Ferb.
And now the fact that it's canon it kind of blew our minds. And then also, Julia, just walk us through a little bit, like, how long have you been a fan of Phineas and Ferb? Like, even prior to M.W.C.A., what's your relation to the show?
Yeah, I'm an OG fan of Phineas and Ferb. I remember watching it specifically after High School Musical 2, when
That's the very
first
beginning.
came out. Yeah, because my friend was over. I was watching it with my friend, and then my dad was like, oh, time to go to sleep. It's time for your friend to leave. And I was like, wait, no, you told me I could stay up and watch the show that's after it. And he was like, yeah, but your friend has to leave because you're like 7 and it's late o'clock at night. So then I got to watch it, and then I went, yippee, this is a good show. And then I watched it for a very long time.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't your dad wink at you when he said you have to go to bed early? Because
to indicate that he was lying.
And then you thought for like a decade afterwards that whenever you lied, you had to wink.
Okay, it wasn't a decade afterwards. It was not that long.
It was 13 years.
It wasn't. But I did then for a couple of years think that to indicate that you're lying, you have to wink at somebody. But now I know you don't have to do that. So
I would have loved to have played poker with you back then.
With a 7-year-old.
I would have destroyed you at poker when you were 7. There's an additional part of the Carl at the Pizzeria story, but we'll get to it later because we've already been talking about our personal selves for like 4.5 minutes. But I guess one more thing I wanted to add. The first time I watched this episode, it didn't even occur to me that Carl at the Pizzeria was canon now. And I think part of the reason for that is because Carl at the Pizzeria takes up, such a, relatively large part of my brain. That
as is normal,
that it was just like such a normal vision to me. Like, oh yeah, there's Carl holding a pizza box, delivering a pizza. I've seen that before. I was part of like a spec script about that. I've written a song about that. There's nothing about this that's strange to me, and it didn't even click until I saw Jonathan on Twitter, the Second Dimension, tweet Carl at the Pizzeria. That I was like, wait a second. And that's the point that I was like losing my mind. And I was also losing my mind because I hadn't even noticed what I had already seen.
But no, this episode, I think even just aside from the fact that it takes one of our inside jokes and makes it canon, this is my favorite episode of the revival so far, because I think this is an episode for the 20-somethings. Like, I think this episode was written for those of us that are hustling, trying to pursue our dreams while balancing multiple jobs. Like, I can only speak from experience, but like, I've worked as a children's birthday party entertainer. Right now,
that line where the guy in the Ducky Momo costume is like, I have an engineering degree.
I think that's what Zach Be Like meant in my notes.
Did you write Zach Be Like for this episode?
In some notes, yes.
Yeah, but I feel like Carl balancing all these jobs so that he can pursue what he loves at Alka, despite the fact that he's not paid for it, and showing that hustle, and people just saying, oh, it's a hobby, or Monogram's experience and exposure line. Like, this was written for our age group, and I think it speaks to us on a personal level, and so I loved everything about this episode.
I think it was also written for the 20-somethings because there's like a Ratatouille reference in it.
Mm-hmm. Who also is a screenwriter. Yeah, who's also a screenwriter, so that also spoke to me.
The food critic that's not actually a food critic.
I thought he looked familiar. I was like, where's this guy
just
from?
fully looks like the critic from Ratatouille.
This appetizer feels unmotivated. Ah, great joke.
It's like this episode is referencing two TikTok musicals at the same time.
Oh, damn.
One interesting thing about all of Carl's jobs, not only does he have 3 other jobs apart from his Alka internship, but he has like a 45-minute shift at each one this night.
Right.
Just back to back. You just going one after the other, after the other.
By the time that he got to the kid's birthday party, I was like, why is this happening so late at night?
Yeah. How old are they? Like 6?
Yeah, 6-year-olds have their birthday parties at noon. That's like their whole thing.
Yeah. That's why 6-year-olds can't even stay up to watch Phineas and Ferb after High School Musical 2.
As we know.
That's true, and you were 7. So
Yeah.
7-year-olds can't even do that. Also, why was nobody at that mall at night? Like, that, I feel like...
They've rented out the mall. They have rich
They were
parents.
at the mall for the birthday party.
Okay, but also, like, I know we were making a joke about those shifts being 45 minutes. I disagree. What I think Carl was at the restaurant for a couple hours. Then he left to do a 1-hour gig for a birthday party, and then was going to be doing pizzas for the rest of the night. So I think he had more than 45-minute shifts for each of those. It was just the birthday party that was kind of like slid in the middle there.
So I guess that makes sense. He's kind of doing like, maybe the restaurant shift was like a 3-hour kind of like 5 to 8 type of thing. Then the 6-year-old birthday party is at like 8 p.m. at the mall. And then
as birthday parties are.
Yeah, as 6-year-old birthday parties are. And then I guess he's just doing like the nighttime delivery shift. You might have been there till like 2 a.m.
So I'm curious. Like, it's always kind of been implied that Carl is a college student because he's an intern. He's doing this job just for college credit, but we never see him at university. And he says he pays rent.
Well,
Does he?
It's summertime.
Oh, right, that makes sense.
Yeah,
but how old do you guys think Carl is? I always kind of assumed he was like 18. The reason that I chose that as my headcanon is because there's an episode where he gets really excited to see Candace, and I feel like if she's like 15 or 16, the oldest he can be, where that's not weird, is 18. But presumably he just lives by himself because he's working all these jobs.
I mean, maybe he lives in a dorm.
Yeah, maybe he's paying for his own room and board.
Mm-hmm.
According to the wiki page, he's listed as around 17 to 19. And yeah, I always thought he was like maybe 18 also, which makes it interesting. When you look at, when you watch Across the Second Dimension, in the 5 years earlier bit, where the family comes and buys Perry, Carl looks pretty much the same except he has braces. So it's like, was Carl already like the level below unpaid intern for Alka when he was like 13 years old?
Was he working with them at 13?
That's,
Can I just say that
child labor laws.
Can I just say, if he was working with them at 13, that explains how he was able to get an internship so easily at 18. Because if you try getting one of those things are hard to get unless they like know you already.
Sometimes you need to just like take one class at a university so that you can say you're a student and be eligible for internship.
Shout out ASU Online. Anyway, yeah, no, I don't know. I really liked this episode for a multitude of reasons. I also feel like it I mean, I kind of want to leave this to Andrew and Julia specifically, but like it highlighted an aspect of the Monogram Carl dynamic that we don't get to see much of.
Yeah, I always love when Monogram gets to do things other than just give Perry his mission briefing, and I feel like this season specifically has done a really good job at showcasing that. The moment at the end, and we're jumping to the end of the episode here, but when Monogram gives Carl that validation and being like, "You are one of the hardest working people that I have ever known." It's legitimately, it feels earned to me. Like I felt a little bit moved by that. Of course, it's undermined with a joke at the end where it's revealed that Monogram is paying Carl, but only in the form of actually paying for the pizza, which, the series does have to return to its status quo. But I loved that entire sequence.
I feel like that's one part of the series where you actually wouldn't necessarily have to return to the status quo. Like Carl being paid wouldn't really fundamentally change anything, you know? I get what you're saying about feeling like, oh, it's a nice sweet moment between Monogram and Carl. I actually completely disagree. I did not find that moment sweet whatsoever. Every time they like dive deep on Monogram, or not every time, but often when they dive deep on Monogram, you see that he's actually like not a nice guy, which is part of his charm in a way and part of what makes him interesting. But I felt the way I read it in that moment, and the way I feel like if this were real people is what the kind of the intentions would be, is Carl has this, he's opening up to Monogram about basically, I don't know if I can continue doing this internship if it's, because it's costing me money and because I need to pay rent and things like that. So the math I see going on in Major Monogram's head is that moment is like, all right, I need to give this guy, I don't need to tell him what he wants to hear. I need to compliment him. I need to reinforce his self-esteem so that he'll like stay around, basically. So that's kind of how I understood it. But
it's a valid interpretation of it. But I feel like Monogram's not that cunning. I feel like he more often will just blurt things out without awareness for Carl's feelings. So,
yeah,
I don't know. I interpreted it as genuine, but maybe that's just me trying to see the best in a character that I played.
What do you think, Julia? You're the tiebreaker.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's supposed to be like a sweet moment there. Like, I think that's how it's like written to be. I feel like you can probably interpret it as being more like Monogram being self-serving, but I think the intention there is for it to just be like he's like, oh yeah, this kid is doing a lot. Time to acknowledge that, but also still not pay him. Because
the last time we really see that get pushed to the forefront is in the episode where Monogram introduces Monty. He's like, Carl, I always told you you're like the son I never had because I do have a son. And the whole time he keeps like praising Monty and not praising Carl. I feel like in this episode, Monogram was like even more appreciative of Carl.
I think Monogram's a morally gray character because I think
like his hair.
Yeah, like his hair because I think he does care about Carl, but at the end of the day, he is a government employee, and so I think he does have these like that unhealthy. Like back in my day, we would walk back in
the academy.
At the academy, we'd walk back to our house with no shoes in the snow, and we'd like it. So if you're doing 3 jobs, you have it easy. Like that kind of boomer mentality.
I guess he does walk away being like a paid intern. How ridiculous!
Exactly, but I think that's just because of the values that have been instilled in him, or being surrounded by the government for years and that kind of culture. But I think he has a good heart. He just doesn't know how to communicate it properly.
Yeah, I think we can all agree the real problem here is society.
If Major Monogram is bad, then society made him that way, according to Michael Scott.
You guys think Monogram remembers he has a wife?
See, okay, is he divorced now? Because last year he had a wife. This year he seems to be living alone in an apartment. So.
Oh, did he get divorced in the off season?
I don't think it's particularly inconsistent with the first 4 seasons because he seems to pretty frequently forget that he has a son and a missus in those seasons as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, living in the apartment would suggest something happened because presumably he's a pretty well-paid employee. Not that you can't have really nice apartments, but I would have imagined Monogram lives in like...
Because he is on the top floor.
There you go.
Because Carl had to climb up all those stairs.
It's true. I don't know. I think he's divorced.
Dang.
Do you think Charlene and Major Monogram's wife are going to get married?
Sure. I thought you were going to say Charlene and Major Monogram.
Oh.
because didn't Major Monogram at one point in the original one make a comment about Charlene? Like, she is quite a handsome woman about Charlene.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, he has the hots for Charlene.
I wish we had more Charlene this season.
I miss Allison Janney.
Yeah.
Yeah, she really... Ever since she left you on red, it's been really hard for you, Zach.
I know. Yeah, don't even talk to me. You know what? I'm just gonna...
Wow, nice Foley work.
All right. I think we got to talk about the reprise of the song Carl the Intern / Carl
I'm back.
Incognito.
I love this song. All right.
I think that is also a direct reference to our many versions of Carl at the places, such as when we were in Tennessee, or Carl at the Garden Grill. I think this is a direct parallel to that, so I think I liked them.
Yeah. we even get a sequence where he goes, Carl delivering pizzas.
Great return of a... Is this with the exception of, like, quirky working the theme song and whatnot. Is this the first time this season that they've brought back a previous song and like redone like?
Well, they had the
lyrics to it?
singing fish doing "Skipper Dan" by Weird Al Yankovic.
Oh yeah, I forgot that that's in the original run of Phineas and Ferb.
We got instrumentals in Summer Blockbuster from Serious Fun and Gotta Get Gone, the song from the Across the Second Dimension video game.
Wow, we are in this deep.
Wait, isn't that the song from Cars?
No, that's Real Gone.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I loved this more than an Intern song. I think, well, the lyrics were funny in each iteration. The first one, Carl removing fish from plates because nobody ordered that. You've got the singer, I think is Danny Jacobs singing, goes up the octave to sing so much more than an intern. I'm like, yeah, rock and roll, building on the original. I was like, I like the sound of this one.
That was really cool. On the topic of nobody ordering fish, I thought it was so funny that Doof's scheming this, like, even more than usual, he acknowledged that it wasn't thought out. Like, he just gets this device to shoot fish at people, and he's like, yeah, I haven't worked out why this makes sense, but I guess serving people live fish without their consent is a little evil.
One of the best pauses, which led to one of the best comedic moments in this episode, was when Doof, like, I think it's like the third time Doof's with Perry, where he makes a joke about, like, filling their hands with fish, and it's like, I'll be able to take over the tri-state area. 'Cause their hands are full. And then there's just a pause, and then Perry just shoots him. And I thought that pause was really well earned.
Our roommate Ben said that someone needs to make an edit where Doof says that line and there's the pause, and then Perry just pulls out, like, a pistol.
Also, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a turf and turf line in this episode, but is there also a surf and surf line?
Yes.
Yeah, because when they're at the restaurant, they have turf and surf, which I originally thought, I was like, that's kind of a weird joke. Like, but then later they have with the fish surf and surf, and I went, that was a setup for a joke. It wasn't actually the joke earlier.
It's like a brick joke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fun.
We also found out after all these years, Ferb's double life that he's been secretly living.
Yes.
He told us about in Across the Second Dimension by putting his hand up. He sneaks off in the nighttime to be a food critic.
I love that. Do you think the writers, when they were making this episode, were thinking about that line from Across the Second Dimension? Or do you think this is just fans having fun connecting the dots?
I think it's just connecting the dots. I don't think they remembered that.
Also, sorry, no, you go.
I'll go. Another thing I like about this episode is that because we're seeing it kind of from Carl's perspective, we do kind of get like an outsider view on like Perry and Doof for a lot of it, which I think is really interesting, of just like the viewpoint of like the people in the restaurant. And then you're like, oh, this guy just comes in and is fighting a platypus and suddenly you're holding fish. And it's just like, what is going on? And I feel like that's something that like watching that show normally, you're so used to this happening. And then seeing it though from another perspective, you're like, oh yeah, this show's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I didn't think about that, but yeah, that's a really good point.
It is. I almost feel like Perry needs to be a little more careful fighting in public because you don't know who could be in that room, who could see him, who could be like, that looks just like Phineas Ferb's pet, Perry the Platypus.
Well, one thing I always found funny about Perry's secret identity is he doesn't care if people see him as an anthropomorphic platypus. He only cares if a very select amount of people see him as that.
Yeah.
The rules of Perry's fedora wearing are highly specific, I guess, is what we're learning from these episodes.
I feel like a majority of the town knows who Phineas and Ferb are at this point.
They should, yeah.
And so the connections to his homeowners, not his homeowners, his owners, I guess, it goes pretty strong, so you'd think he'd be more cautious about it. But maybe he just assumes that people don't recognize him.
Zach, Phineas and Ferb's platypus doesn't wear a fedora.
Oh, damn, I forgot about that. No, you're right.
Right. So how could he possibly... Right, of course. It's just like Robbie Ray Stewart's mustache, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, God. If you're looking for a Disney Channel series with even weirder rules about what constitutes a secret identity, just look at any character on Hannah Montana who has a secret disguise other than Miley herself.
Yep. Maybe that'll be our next podcast. Just kidding.
I loved this usage of... No, the next podcast we're making is about Girl Meets World.
Oh, yeah. We're making a podcast called Girl Meets World Sucks.
If y'all
I'm sorry for anybody who's a fan of Girl Meets World.
But you shouldn't
not.
be.
You should take a long look in the mirror. But anyway, I do like the usage of Ferb in this. I think they've been giving Ferb a lot of good moments this season. Actually, there's a line early on. This is kind of tangential, but early on in the episode, Phineas is like, "What did Ferb say? Oh, he didn't say." I think that's a great joke.
Oh, yeah.
And that's also that exact same joke is made in the Broadway musical Annie about Harpo Marx, because it's like talking about like calls that Warbucks got while he was away. It's like, oh, Harpo Marx called. What did Harpo want? He didn't say. And I remember seeing that with a bunch of kids and being the only one that laughed at that joke because Harpo Marx was a silent comedian, and all the kids around me being like, "Why do you know this? You're 10." But that's a really, really good joke.
I also like that moment because Phineas, like, in that moment where he's without Ferb, looks so visibly, like, upset and uncomfortable. Like, he can't handle this, like, 1 second of boredom that he's experiencing.
And then when they're like, what do you want to do? And it's nighttime, and they're like, oh, we should do whatever, but with this. I was like, can these kids just ever, like, I don't know, play tag or something? Like, do they always have to do something chaotic?
Also, it's presumably pretty late. Can't they just, like, take a nap until, like...
You mean go to sleep?
Well, no, because they need to wake up again so they can see the lacrosse thing work.
Yeah.
Or, like, I don't know, like, have s'mores or watch a movie or something?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, there should be an episode where they, like, have a sleepover.
Yeah, I wonder if
not
they'll
done that?
ever do that in the future of season 5, and maybe in like the last episode of the first half.
Wait, there is one?
There is?
Yes.
Oh, we haven't seen that.
You guys need to watch the rest of the episodes.
Okay.
I like that.
Wait, do they make, like, a big-ass pillow fight or something?
You gotta watch the episodes, Zach.
Okay. If that is, that's me locking in my prediction. But anyway.
I like that because it's so late at night, too. Candace is just like, man, I'm not busting them right now. I'm going back to bed. Because there are moments where even your biggest goal in life will be usurped by just needing to sleep.
Yeah.
Seriously. Yeah.
Not us. We got up to do this podcast.
Yeah, it's 11 in the morning here. That's how early we woke up for all of you guys.
We like sleep, okay?
Yeah.
Oh, another thing about this episode that was strange is side-facing Carl, because he's got, like, it's not like Muppet Rules, where it's like, is sometimes Muppet Rules where his eyes are, like, part of his glasses, but then other times he has eyes behind his glasses, and it's very strange looking.
I think it would be weirder if Carl did use Muppet Rules, like for Dr. Bunsen Honeydew, where, like, he didn't have eyes.
No, but sometimes it is. Like, sometimes when it's the profile, the glasses just, like, wrap around more.
Yeah.
But I guess this is, like, an emotional scene, so they wouldn't really need to see the emotion in his eyes, you know?
Yeah.
But I feel like you don't see the emotion in the eyes without the whites of the eyes. Like, seeing just the pupil is kind of...
What's that, then?
That's the reflection.
You know, Carl kind of has his own rules in regards to this universe's art style.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why he's so much more than an intern.
He's so much.
He is so much more than an intern. He's a pizza
He is so
delivery
much more
guy.
than
He
an
works at the
intern.
pizzeria. And speaking of that, I want to circle back to that now, actually, because I teased another Carl at the Pizzeria related story, and now I'm going to tell it. Because some of you may know, we've mentioned in previous episodes and stuff, that a group of M.W.C.A. cast, which included the 4 of us and other people, visited Disney TVA last March in 2024, and I actually performed Carl at the Pizzeria there for...
in front of all the Phineas and Ferb writers and staff.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy. And we don't have any video of it, but you can trust me, it definitely happened. And after that, Dan Povenmire himself told me, we have an episode about that in the new season. And I thought he was joking because part of the Carl at the Pizzeria song, for those of you who don't know, our friend and M.W.C.A. cast member Rosemary has basically, I don't know if it's a headcanon, but something that she came up with, where how Alka acquires these animals to be agents is by murdering the parents of the animals. So, they found that was funny. And when Dan said we have an episode about that, I thought he was telling a joke. Because I was like, oh,
we all did. Like, the room laughed when he said that.
Yeah, we laughed because it's like, oh, you don't actually have an episode about, when Alka murdered all the agents' parents. That part is true. But then, no, he was, I guess, turned out to be partially completely serious because they do have an episode where Carl works at a pizzeria.
Love the
So,
phrase
I'm not
partially, completely serious, by the way.
Yeah.
A little oxymoronic, but I like it.
Pepperoni.
Mamma mia.
Yeah, so that was kind of insane. That was kind of crazy. So I guess what I'm saying is that this idea has been around prior to March 2024. Or Dan lied and stole this from us, but I don't think that's the case.
I just think
I'll
having...
take my royalty check now, Dan.
I do think, having someone playing an intern, obviously, you're going to think, what do they do when they're not interning? They probably have to pay for whatever. I think pizza delivery is such a stereotypical job for that kind of trope that I think it works.
Yeah, it's like you're either that or you're riding a bike throwing like newspapers at buildings.
But I feel like that skews a little younger. Like, I feel like if you don't have your driver's license, you're throwing newspapers at buildings on your bike. If you do have your driver's license, you're delivering pizzas.
Yeah. Also,
But Carl was delivering the pizzas on his
cars
bike.
haven't been invented
Yeah, they
yet.
didn't even give him like a pizza car. He had a bike for it.
Oh, does Carl not have his license?
Well, he might not have a car.
I was going to say,
We know he has a license because he drives the ice cream truck in...
Well, that's also a different kind of license. Like that you need like a commercial license for.
I wouldn't be surprised if Carl is licensed for the majority of motor vehicles.
But not cars.
One last thing I want to talk about with this episode. So there's this little kid, Brittany, who's just like the worst.
What? She's the
No,
best.
she's great. The one who likes the fish.
She's the one that like at the kid's birthday party is just like, I hope you don't get your wish.
No, that's not what she said.
No, that's not the implication. No.
What's the implication?
No, the earlier they get the fish and she's like,
One kid says, I wish this was a gift card.
and then the other girl is like, I don't, indicating that she likes the fish, and she gives the fish a hug.
And then what happens is that someone's later like, I hope this doesn't traumatize me for life. And then she goes, I don't. And then in this scene, she says, I don't. Like,
yeah, she's rooting for his trauma.
No, she doesn't want the trauma to affect her.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
Brittany is a selfless person.
But then she has a final jab against Carl in the last scene.
Rewind it. What does she say?
Yeah.
I know she says, I don't, because that's her. I think my career just took a giant step forward.
And she goes, I don't.
Okay, that's kinda
fair,
mean.
but that is
Yeah.
also fair.
No, he did get promoted. Kind of.
No, he didn't.
Well, they started validating his parking, which, can we just talk about how evil that is?
Oh, I interpreted that as validating his parking at Monogram's apartment.
Oh, no. I think they're going to start validating his parking at Alka.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well,
So I think he did take a step forward.
I wouldn't call that a giant step forward, though.
It's a step.
It's a step.
Look, when you're in your 20s, small victories are still victories.
Yeah.
All right. I was going to say, I feel like with Brittany in this I don't running gag, as well as the water park episode a couple weeks back, I think the kid incidentals have been really funny this season.
Yeah, they've been great. Oh, Zach, I guess this is a recurring segment on our podcast now. What did you think of this farmer and wife gag?
Oh,
Yep.
I mentioned earlier that in a later episode there's a subversion on the farmer and wife. I think Julie also wanted to talk about this.
Did I?
Oh, I thought it was on your notes.
It's not in my notes, but I will talk about it. Just because we watched these actually out of order because we heard that this one was one that we should watch sooner based on our friends because of the Carl at the Pizzeria thing. So this was I think the second episode I watched from the revival. So they do the subversion of the farmer and his wife gag. I was like, oh, yeah, I guess that's funny, but I feel like that would be more funny if it was set up more recently than this. But apparently it was, and we just watched them out of order.
Yeah, this is not the first farmer and wife gag.
This is the third instance of the farmer and the wife gag this season, and the fish just coming back onto Doof is not only a 10 out of 10 joke, but then them appearing in the tank at the end of the episode.
It's really
You know what it reminded me of? I feel like you might know this, Julia. You guys remember ASDF movie?
Yes.
On YouTube,
Yeah.
I vaguely
series of
remember.
shorts, and they had the I Like Trains kid, where he just say I like trains, and then a train would run someone over. And then in the later installments, they started just subverting that all the time, and you'd think something's gonna happen, and then it just comes at a completely different time. It was that kind of humor, and I
Yeah,
think
it
landed.
was. Yeah, it was great. My favorite part of it was not even just that it didn't come, but that the farmer and wife were both fully expecting it to come. They were looking up in the sky all right, fish.
Yeah.
Any second now.
And I like that the wife, she doesn't even not believe him when it shows up. She's just I'll look at it in the morning.
And I feel like that was also kind of a callback to Candace in a way.
Yeah.
No, I think this episode's phenomenal.
Yeah.
A cool trend about this season is there's been a couple episodes where if it's an unusual setting, whether it's the day where it's really hot in the water park or just this episode taking place at night, it kind of affects every single character and it changes the vibe of the whole episode. And I think that's really cool.
I agree.
All right, I've got one last question for everyone before we wrap this up. Now, November 31st, as we all know, is Agent Intern Day.
Which, by the way, which prompted Andrew to say, we should celebrate that this year. To which I had to say, Andrew, there is no November 31st. That's the joke.
Andrew, do you not know your days of the months?
After we celebrate the eve of every month and you don't even know how many days there are?
I celebrate December Eve. I don't remember which date it falls on.
That's November 30th, not November 31st.
So my question is, since November 31st is Agent Intern Day, what will Alka be celebrating on November 32nd?
Ooh. I think it's Wife Appreciation Day, which never comes from Major Monogram.
My answer is Skipper Dan by Weird Al Yankovic.
I think it's Agent Intern Day Cleanup Day, where they clean up from the events of Agent Intern Day.
And they make the interns do it?
Yeah, no, the interns have to do this. It's a mandatory. They don't get paid for it. But, like, even more so, like, they actually have to pay for it this time.
Damn.
My guess is it's the day that they honor the memory of Agent T. All right.
Oh, yeah, because it's right after Thanksgiving.
It's right after Thanksgiving.
Oh, why did I think Agent Turtle? Oh my god.
Well, there is also Terry the Turtle.
Okay.
And also there's Agent T for Teen, but we'll get to that 2 episodes from now.
I have not seen that yet. I'm very excited.
Well, any final words of wisdom?
Yes, I actually have. I don't know why, but in my notes, I just wrote down whale flamingo.
The whale mango?
Yeah, I don't know why I wrote that down.
Because that is an episode, but why did you write that down?
I don't know. It came in my notes between Surf and Surf and Side Facing Carl. But so if anyone can figure out why I wrote that, leave it in the comments.
Sound off below.
Why do you think Julia wrote whale flamingo?
Maybe it's because the gang hanging out at nighttime was kind of reminiscent of that episode.
That's what I was
Buford's
thinking.
there.
But I want to hear more creative answers. So please give us your most construed theory in the comments.
Hashtag Jeremy here.
Hashtag Jeremy here, HERE. Wait, or are we doing here like hearing like the sense?
We'll see what people write in the comments.
All right, do whatever you want. I don't care.
All right, Julia, do you have anything to plug?
Yeah, make sure you follow Afterferb and rate 5 stars on Spotify.
And Cloudy with the Chance of Mom.
And Cloudy with the Chance of Mom.
And like, subscribe, and comment.
When they found out that Alka murdered all the agents' parents, the organization was quickly discontinued. Monogram was jobless, traumatized, and quite embarrassed to be found in a scandal of such magnitude. Even though things could have been much better, he still wrote Carl a reference letter. It's Carl at the Pizzeria, pepperoni, mamma mia. That's a spicy meatball. Did I mention that the pizzeria's at the mall? Carl at the Pizzeria, the manager is named Sophia. Family comes from Korea. And she's never been complicit in the murder of animals, as far as I know. Hey, I know what we're gonna analyze. The episodes in season 5. Hope it brings you laughter.
Hi, this is Julia again. I just wanted to clarify, I am not charter school girl, despite the fact that I did go to the bathroom while we were at Disney TVA. Thank you.
This is Afterferb.